The moment I became self-aware of my role as the story's villain, the childhood friend I had imprisoned and tortured was kneeling at my feet, her body trembling as she gritted her teeth against the pain. My hands were shaking as I went to untie her. She let out a cold, bitter laugh. "Weren't you going to kill me, pretty boy?" My hands froze. According to the plot, I was supposed to imprison the female lead, Chloe, subjecting her to all kinds of physical and psychological torment. Ultimately, she would have me committed to a psychiatric hospital, where I would end my own life by jumping from the roof. The realization terrified me so much I started to cry. I pulled a crumpled note from my pocket. I handed it to her. Chloe had written it for me when she was 7. A coupon to forgive Ethan for anything he does. When I became aware of my role as the villain, I was holding a bloodstained whip. I froze right where I stood. The villain? With a trembling hand, I pointed to myself. Me? A muffled groan pulled me back to reality. Before me, a somber young woman was kneeling on the floor. Her dark hair was a mess, her delicate jawline lost in the damp shadows. Her arms were chained and suspended in the air, her hands hanging limp and powerless. Her breathing was faint. Chloe, the heroine of this redemption story, and also my childhood friend. In the story, I had been secretly in love with Chloe for 10 years. I was supposed to be the sweet, harmless boy who was always by her side. But when the male lead showed up, my descent into villainy accelerated. I repeatedly tried to frame the male lead, and then I imprisoned the heroine, torturing and tormenting her, doing one stupid, cruel thing after another. Chloe became utterly disappointed in me, filled with nothing but disgust. She was the one who personally had me committed. Soon after, I lost my mind and jumped from the roof to my death. And now, the Chloe who had not yet become a powerful figure was kneeling at my feet. The collar of her white blouse was torn open. Ghastly, bright red whip marks stood out against her chest. Her pale face was slick with cold sweat, and her lips trembled. The moment my eyes met hers, I understood everything. My life was probably over. Her eyes, like those of a cornered animal, looked as if they might shatter as they locked onto me. A wild, churning hatred seethed within them. I was about to cry. I, Ethan Ross, have spent my life trying to be a good person, a coward who avoids trouble at all costs. I have no idea how to be this villain. Better late than never, I had to fix this. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the key to Chloe's shackles. My eyes fell on the raw, red marks on her wrists. A memory suddenly flashed through my mind. As I was locking the chains, I had morbidly touched every inch of her skin. My sharp nails had left red scratches on her pale face. Chloe, I'm going to lock you by my side forever. You can only look at me. A shiver ran down my spine. The Ross and Anderson families were old friends, and we lived right next to each other. Our parents had even made a casual agreement to have us marry someday. Chloe was a year older than me. As I remembered it, I was always trailing behind her, calling her name sweetly, Chloe. Chloe had a cool demeanor, but she treated me like her own little brother and spoiled me rotten. But later, my feelings grew more complicated. I was no longer content with our platonic brother-sister relationship. I grew jealous as I watched her and the male lead get closer. That's why I kidnapped her and tried to force her to love me. Clank. The lock clicked open, and the chain clattered to the floor. The sound echoed sharply in the dark, empty basement. I forced a placating smile. I was actually on the verge of tears. Chloe, if I told you I was possessed, would you believe me? A scoff. The woman's lips curled into a sneer. Her beautiful, almond-shaped eyes were cold and merciless. Her voice was hoarse as she spoke, slow and mocking. Weren't you going to kill me, pretty boy? My body went rigid. Chloe must truly hate me now. She used to call me by my first name. She narrowed her eyes, a dangerous fury glinting within them. She moved closer. Her shadow fell over me, creating an immense sense of pressure. Ethan, what kind of game are you playing now? The memories flooded back. 3 days ago, I had lightly tapped her face with the whip. I had smiled and said we were going to play a game. I unlocked her shackles. I tossed her a key. I told her, this basement was a maze with 7 sealed rooms. There was only one path out, only one door that led to the outside world. If she could find it, I would let her go. She had wandered every path of the maze, tried every single door, until she finally collapsed from exhaustion. Only then did I appear before her. My eyes were bloodshot. I had questioned her like a madman. Do you want to leave that badly? Why can't you just stay with me forever? Are you just going to run back to Liam? Why? Why is he the only one you see now? Chloe, you're mine. You can only look at me. If you try to run again, I'll kill you. Liam was the story's male lead. After a falling out with her family in high school, Chloe had enrolled in a state university. In her junior year, she co-founded a startup with the equally brilliant male lead. They were always in the lab together, entering competitions, and building their company. They were inseparable, and their feelings for each other deepened. After overcoming countless obstacles, they achieved their happy ending. And I was the biggest obstacle they were about to overcome. I didn't just target the male lead, I sabotaged both of them at every turn. I even kidnapped her right before she was supposed to lead her team in a critical competition. I closed my eyes, wanting to cry but having no tears left. Ethan, oh Ethan, you really outdid yourself. How dare you treat the heroine like your plaything? How did you end up with a life this full of terrible courage? My life was over. In these kinds of stories, crossing the heroine never ends well. Seeing my attention drift, Chloe finally lost her patience. She grabbed my shoulder so hard I thought I could hear the bones crack. Ethan, say something. What the hell do you want? When are you going to let me go? Chloe's expression was terrifyingly dark. She looked like she wanted to tear me to shreds and devour me. I felt like crying but couldn't. I stared at her for 2 seconds as if I were facing my own death, then took a deep breath. I suddenly buried my face in her chest. I started wailing my head off. Chloe, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I don't know what came over me. Sincerity is always the ultimate weapon. If I begged hard enough, maybe I could escape the villain's fate. I sniffled, looking up at Chloe with tear-blurred eyes. I said pitifully, Chloe, I am only 20 years old. You have to let me make mistakes. The air seemed to freeze. Her body went rigid for a second. Then, probably because my head had hit her injuries, she gasped in pain. Then she shoved me away forcefully. Ethan, do you think a simple apology erases everything? Who the hell do you think you are? Her eyes were bloodshot. She looked at me as if she wanted to skin me alive. It was over. Chloe still wanted to kill me. I was so scared that tears started streaming down my face. I fumbled in my inside pocket and pulled out a crumpled note. I carefully unfolded it and held it out to her. Chloe had written it for me when she was 7. So many years had passed that the paper had grown soft and fuzzy with age. The pencil marks had faded and blurred, but you could still faintly make out the words. A coupon to forgive Ethan for anything he does. It was for something trivial, really. She had spilled my milk, but I must have been a spoiled brat, because I threw a tantrum and would not stop crying. Chloe, who always acted so mature, panicked for the first time. She wrote this note just to calm me down. In the original story, I had used it then, too, right before she was about to have me committed. But by then, I had done too much and it was too late for redemption. Honestly, I did not blame Chloe for how things ended. After all, in the original story, the things I did were truly monstrous. And now, this was my last hope for survival. Chloe stared at the crumpled piece of paper, stunned. She probably never imagined I would have kept it. A childish promise now being treated as a real contract. Her cool lips pressed into a thin, straight line. I could not stop the tears from falling. After a long moment, the icy look in her eyes finally softened. She let go of my shoulder. She stood up decisively and walked away. Before she left, she gave me one last, deep look. She left me with a final warning. Ethan, don't ever do anything that disgusts me again. Disgusting? Yes, this kind of twisted affection. It really is disgusting. I collapsed to the floor, feeling like I had just survived a disaster. Tears still clung to my eyelashes, but I quickly pulled out my phone. I practically shrieked into it. Mom, you have to send me to study abroad now. Boston. I want to go to Boston. Chloe belongs with the male lead. They are a perfect match and I would have to be insane to try and fight for her. I would only get myself killed. I believe the next few years in Boston will be the most peaceful years of my life. In a few years, the hero and heroine will have settled down. And I certainly will not make the same mistakes again. I will not meet such a miserable end. Chloe's return was a shot of adrenaline for her leaderless team. The competition was getting a lot of attention. Countless investors had their eyes on it. All the rising stars were fighting to get noticed and secure funding. On the first day of the semifinals, a news alert popped up on my phone. I glanced at it. She wore a perfectly tailored suit, her figure tall and lean, her features sharp, her rimless glasses giving her an air of calm intelligence. It was a world away from the broken woman in the basement. On camera, she looked through the bustling crowd and her eyes met Liam's. It was nothing like the hateful glare she gave me. In front of him, her eyes were always confident and resolute, as if she were silently saying, "I have got this." Spirited and invincible, I turned off my screen. In the story, the basement imprisonment was just the beginning. Later, I was supposed to torture Chloe, a proud and dignified woman, until she became a dark, twisted shell of herself. I would break her spirit piece by piece. I would make her lose everything, leaving her with no choice but to look up at me from the gutter, dependent on me. In the end, my love would twist into such a violent hate that I would try to run her and her family down with a car. I rubbed my aching temples. That was not love. That was pure, sadistic cruelty. No wonder Chloe hated me. I clutched the study abroad application that needed a signature from the dean's office. I walked even faster. "Chloe, Boston is over 3,000 miles from Seattle, with a 3-hour time difference. It was the farthest I could get from you. For the past few days, I had been running around non-stop, trying to get my transfer paperwork sorted. I was walking across campus, staring at my phone and replying to a message from the registrar. I was so distracted that I walked right into someone. I rubbed my forehead and was about to apologize. A light laugh came from ahead of me. "Well, if it isn't Chloe's little shadow. Fancy meeting you here, accidentally running into our Chloe again?" I looked up and met Chloe's cold, guarded gaze. Her brow was furrowed. The hand at her side tightened into a fist. She studied me for a long time, and behind the revulsion and disgust in her eyes, there seemed to be a flicker of something more complex. Her tone was harsh. "What are you doing here?" A chill went through me. I opened my mouth, but could not bring myself to say her name. The people with her did not notice the tension. "What do you mean, accidentally?" The way Ethan follows Chloe around, you would think he put a GPS tracker on her. Wherever she goes, he just happens to show up. Everyone else thought it was just a joke, but I felt a prickle of dread on my skin. The phone in my hand suddenly felt like a hot coal. I almost threw it across the pavement, because it really did have a tracking app linked to Chloe's phone. Ever since Liam had entered her life, they became partners, walking side by side, sharing a world I could never enter. It was like an invisible barrier pushing me away. My insecurity grew stronger. Driven by a twisted possessiveness, I had installed a tracking app on her phone. I used it to stage these chance encounters. I kept her constantly in my sights, a prisoner of my gaze. I even reveled in the teasing from others. I deliberately manufactured a false sense of intimacy in front of Liam. It was not just suffocating for Chloe, it was suffocating for me too. "But hey, Ethan, how come you did not come to the competition? Did you two have a fight? I did not think you two ever stayed mad at each other." Everyone's eyes were still shifting between me and Chloe, full of clueless, knowing smirks. It was a lot more than a fight. It was basically attempted murder. I saw Chloe's expression darken. I cursed silently. My eyes instinctively darted toward the male lead. Liam was just as his name suggested, cool and handsome. He heard the teasing, but his expression remained unchanged. He even looked over at me with an amused expression, just as you would expect from the hero of the story, so calm and confident. He could not be bothered to engage with a petty villain like me. But outside of the script, Ethan Ross was just a coward. Just as I was wringing my hands, trying to figure out how to escape, a cocky voice cut through the air. "Where's Liam?" I turned toward the voice. I was nearly blinded by a flash of bleached blonde hair. The girl's wild eyes held a fierce, untamed look. Her knuckles were white around the tire iron she was holding. Combined with that wild hair color, she looked exactly like a punk rock delinquent. Too bad. I shook my head. Anyone who went up against the hero and heroine was just destined to be collateral damage. But she looked vaguely familiar. Chloe subtly stepped in front of Liam. Her eyes grew cold as she asked in a low voice, "What do you want with him?" The punk girl raised a sharp eyebrow. She faced off against Chloe without backing down an inch. "Someone paid me to deliver a message." She tapped the tire iron in her hand meaningfully. A threatening smirk played on her lips. "Liam, you should watch your back when you are walking alone. Be careful of..." Before she could finish, I shot up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. It was her. I got on my tiptoes, wrapped an arm around her neck from behind, and clamped my hand over her mouth. I said sheepishly, "Sorry about that. She is my friend. She has the wrong person. We are just going to go catch up." My laugh was full of guilt. I was about to drag her away, but Chloe grabbed my wrist. Her dark eyes lingered for a moment on my arm wrapped around the girl's neck before returning to my face. She looked upset. "I did not know you had a friend like her. What was wrong with Chloe? After what I did to her, Shouldn't she hate my guts? Why would she suddenly care who my friends were? I lied through my teeth. We just met, while you were away at the competition. I have not been following you around lately, so you would not know. Chloe, you were always telling me to make new friends. Well, I made a new friend. Are you happy? I looked at her cautiously. Even with Chloe's patience, my constant clinging would wear her down. When she could not take my smothering anymore, she would rub her temples, swallow her frustration, and gently tell me, Ethan, you need to have other friends besides me, don't you? I was leaving. In these last few moments with her, I just wanted her to be happy. Chloe was not happy, but she was not angry either. She just pulled her hand back from my wrist, letting it fall to her side where it clenched into a fist. Her dark eyes, deep and unreadable, stared at me. Then, in silence, she watched me go. We were a good distance away before the girl finally broke free of my grip. She ran a hand through her messy hair. She demanded coldly, Hey, what was that all about? I tried to sound calm. Chloe was right there. I was just worried you would blow our cover. That was right. The girl, Raven, who had threatened the male lead, was someone I had hired. I paid her, she did the job. After hearing me out, her cold eyes narrowed with a deep sense of irony. Don't worry, I have my professional ethics. I took your money. I am not going to sell you out. The girl in front of me leaned in. She narrowed her sharp eyes, looking me over with a fierce intensity. Her gaze was filled with contempt. What's the matter, rich boy? Scared. I knew she was trying to provoke me. The crease between her brows betrayed her own anxiety. She needed the money. Raven's parents had died when she was young, and her grandmother had raised her in poverty. Now her grandmother was in the hospital, and the massive medical bills had pushed her into a corner. In the original story, I had used this to my advantage. I had turned her into my sharpest weapon. The villain's hired muscle, of course, would not meet a good end. Raven died on a rainy night. She had kidnapped the male lead. During a standoff with the police, she took him hostage. She was shot and killed while trying to take him down with her. The me from the story had bought her morals, her future, and ultimately her life. But in the end, that me never helped save her grandmother. A sharp pain shot through my chest. I felt like I had just woken from a nightmare, my whole body weak. I was terrified of that version of me. I pulled a debit card from my wallet. There is $100,000 on this. Raven's expression flickered, and a mocking smile touched her lips, but her eyes dimmed, suppressing a desperate, twisted madness. Her voice was low and hoarse. 100,000, that is enough to buy his life. I frowned and held up 2 fingers. No, 2 lives. She frowned even more deeply. I continued, I want you to protect Liam from now on. Do not let him get hurt. As the story's hero, Liam had the standard tragic backstory. A gambling-addicted father, a neglectful mother, a sick younger brother, and a broken home. Consider it me hiring a bodyguard for him. It was also a small way to make up for all the times I had tormented him. I tucked the card into the breast pocket of her flannel shirt. I stared at her and said fiercely, And as for you, you are going to be a good person from now on. You are going to live an honest life. Or else, I will tell your grandmother that you have been getting into fights at school. Let's see how you maintain that good girl act for her then. I watched Raven's tough expression shift from pale to red and back again. Felt good. Being a good person felt so much better. I rubbed my chest, which still ached. My eyes stung. How could I have done so many terrible things? The sun was setting. The Seattle afternoon was still muggy and hot. I walked through a remote alleyway lined with food stalls, wearing a simple white t-shirt. The stalls had just opened for the evening, and only a few tables were taken. Most of them were shirtless men, loudly discussing politics and telling crude jokes. I felt a pair of unfriendly eyes following me. I frowned. I picked up my pace. I ducked into a winding alley just as the sun disappeared completely. The alley was swallowed by the darkness. I heard heavy footsteps behind me, getting closer. I started walking faster without thinking. Suddenly, a rough hand landed on my shoulder. A greasy, slurred laugh echoed in my ear. Hey kid, why don't you come have a drink with me? I turned my head. A drunken man with a scarred face loomed over me. I said calmly, Sir, assault is a crime. He laughed, the ruddy flesh of his face wrinkling. No need to use such ugly words. There are no cameras here. I smirked. No cameras? That is perfect. Get him. A sack dropped from above, covering the man's head. Raven dragged him to the ground and started laying into him with her fists. This was Liam's father. He was a compulsive gambler who had abused his wife and son for years. He also had a habit of harassing kids in this secluded alley. He was pure trash. He had recently racked up a lot of gambling debt and was about to come looking for his now successful son. He was going to try and force Liam to drop out of college and work to pay it off. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and I landed a hard kick of my own. Scumbag. When the man on the ground finally stopped moving, I dusted off my hands. I said to Raven, "Let's go." Raven glanced at the man on the ground, her eyes cold and empty. She lifted her sneaker and ground it hard into the man's right hand. The injuries would keep him laid up for a few weeks. But when someone found him and called the police, and they found the drugs we planted on him, his life as a free man would be over. It was late by the time Raven dropped me off at my dorm. A late breeze rustled the leaves. Chloe was standing under a tree in front of the building. She must have been waiting for a while, as a few small petals had fallen onto her shoulders. I instinctively glanced in the direction Raven had gone. I felt a strange pang of guilt. I was not sure if it was just my imagination, but Chloe's eyes seemed to hold a trace of resentment. "We are going to Mount Rainier tomorrow." When Chloe spoke, her face was half hidden in shadow. I looked up, trying to gauge her expression. I did not know how to act around this new, cold version of Chloe. They say you can't put the pieces back together again. No matter how close Chloe and I had been, there was now a chasm between us that could never be bridged. If our roles were reversed, if she had imprisoned and tortured me, I would never forgive her. But my heart still ached with regret. We had known each other for more than a decade. I said dejectedly, "Chloe, I know you are still angry with me. Don't worry, I will not bother you anymore." Before I could finish my sentence, "Did we not already make up?" Under the cool moonlight, her lovely brow furrowed slightly. She asked, confused, "Made up? Had we?" I was taken aback. Before I could process it, she continued, "We are going to a chapel on the mountain tomorrow to give thanks, and we are planning to camp overnight. You should come too and pray." I do not know what she was thinking, but she frowned deeply. "I have arranged for a priest to see you." A priest? Chloe could not possibly think I was actually possessed, could she? How could a staunch materialist like Chloe believe in things like exorcisms? I was speechless. Unfortunately, the rules of this world prevented me from telling her the truth. In the original story, I had thrown a fit, crying and begging Chloe to take me on the Mount Rainier trip. Then, I had hatched a plan to get Liam lost in the woods. Then I had Raven push him off a cliff. A cold sweat broke out on my back. I could not stop shaking. I repeated a mantra in my head. "Murder is a crime, murder is a crime. I will pick you up tomorrow morning." I snapped out of it and shook my head vigorously. "I am not going. I really can't. I have other plans." "What plans?" Her voice was clipped and even. I was so anxious sweat beaded on my forehead. "I have plans with a friend." Chloe's calm eyes stared right at me. "With Raven." I was trapped. I had almost no friends besides Chloe. I could not think of anyone else, so I had to bite the bullet and nod. The night wind blew past. The shifting shadows of the trees played across Chloe's face, hiding her expression. Her voice was low, as if she were holding something back. "How did you and Raven meet? You or Ross?" Chloe's voice was suddenly as cold as ice. "How much did you have to pay her to get her on your side?" It was the middle of a scorching summer, but I felt like I had been plunged into an ice bath. My hands and feet went numb, my blood turning to ice in my veins. I finally understood why Chloe had come to find me. She wanted to warn me, to stay away from Liam, but I was not going to hurt him anymore. The face that was once so gentle in my memory was now cold and strange. She looked down at me, her eyes completely devoid of emotion. Any words of defense I might have had died in my throat. I was speechless. "You had Raven follow Liam, you made a scene at his part-time job and got him fired, and now you are threatening him right in front of me. Ethan, what the hell are you trying to do?" The fragile peace between us was finally shattered because of him. I could not help but take 2 steps back, but she grabbed my wrist forcefully. "Raven is not a good person. Is she the one who taught you to be like this?" I looked into Chloe's furious eyes, and my blood ran cold. I looked at her, confused. "Chloe, what if this is just who I am?" Sometimes I could not tell the difference. Was the me in the story the same person as the me standing here now? That was why I was so desperate to escape. More than the thought of hurting Chloe and Liam, what truly pained me was the thought of becoming someone I despised. A monster without a conscience. I sighed. "Chloe, just leave me alone." The yellow glow of the streetlight fell on Chloe's face. I could see the dark circles of exhaustion under her eyes. Her tone grew heavy. What is all this about? Tomorrow, you are coming with me to apologize to Liam. You do not need to worry about anything else. I will handle it. She rubbed her temples, her patience clearly wearing thin. Ethan, just be good. I can't clean up your messes forever. Leaving your lives forever was a better solution than any apology. I shook her hand off. I lifted my chin, my expression stubborn and cold. Chloe, you know I hate Liam, so why are you forcing me to apologize to him? If you do not want me to hurt you, then both of you should stay away from me forever. Chloe's expression faltered. Ethan, we have not seen each other in 13 days, and this is how you treat me? I met her gaze seriously. Chloe, I do not want to see you again. The moon was setting. A hot breeze, carrying the scent of grass, blew in from the balcony. I watched Chloe's retreating figure until she disappeared. At the same time, I sent a voice message on iMessage. Dad, you have to remember to invest in Chloe's team. They have real potential. In the original story, I had not only refused to support Chloe's project, but I had also used my family's influence to sabotage them at every turn. On top of that, I had caused a rift with the Anderson family. Chloe's startup journey had been fraught with difficulties. This time, I wanted to give them a smooth path forward. From now on, we would go our separate ways. The first light of dawn was breaking. The rustling leaves carried a cool morning breeze. Chloe had sent me a few texts. I did not reply. Soon, my phone was ringing. Ethan, stop this. Her voice was tinged with exasperation. It seemed that in her eyes, all I ever did was cause trouble. I tightened my grip on my phone. Chloe, I made myself very clear yesterday. Her tone softened a little. You used to always beg to come to these kinds of get-togethers. If I did not bring you, you would be in a bad mood for days. I was speechless. The me from the story was too possessive. The thought of Chloe and Liam laughing together somewhere I could not see would send me into a jealous rage, making me want to cry and scream and destroy everything. No one on Chloe's team actually liked me. I could not blame her for being sick of me. I hated that version of myself too. Chloe, I really have things to do today. I cannot go. It is Saturday. What could you possibly have to do? Her tone hardened again. From nearby, Raven's voice called out. Ethan, do you want a bagel or a donut? The line went silent for 2 seconds. Beep, she hung up. I put my phone away and calmly took the breakfast Raven offered me. I had not lied to Chloe. I really was busy. Busy dropping out of one school and applying to another. Busy leaving her world behind. Chloe was leaning against a black car at the entrance to my dorm. She wore a black blouse, and her aura was frigid. Without a word, she grabbed my wrist and shoved me into the passenger seat. Click. She yanked the seatbelt out violently. Her cold hand brushed against my collarbone and chest as she deftly clicked the buckle into place. Then her hand gripped my side tightly. She pressed me firmly against the seat. It felt like a punishment, a restraint. It sent a shiver through me. Chloe's face was only an inch from mine. Her dark eyes stared into mine. I could clearly see the suppressed anger beneath her dark brows. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Ethan, be good. The door slammed shut. My heart was still pounding. The car was already moving. Mount Rainier. I lagged far behind the others. I picked a wildflower and began resentfully pulling off its petals. A bottle of water suddenly appeared in front of me. I looked up. Chloe's fair skin was beaded with sweat, glistening in the sun. Her expression was cold, but she could not hide the concern in her eyes. What is wrong? I pleaded with her in a soft voice. Chloe, I cannot walk anymore. Can I just wait for you all at that rest stop up ahead? Mount Rainier was not a difficult climb, only a few thousand feet. I felt a little guilty. Chloe seemed surprised. We had been fighting so much lately, we had not had a real conversation in a long time. Seeing my softer tone, her expression softened. She crouched down in front of me. Her voice was firm. Get on. I flinched and took a step back. When I did not move, she turned and frowned at me. You used to get tired on hikes, and I always carried you. I was speechless. Chloe had always been so good to me. Ever since we were kids, all I had to do was ask, and Chloe would give me whatever I wanted. Whenever I made a mistake, she was always there to shield me. I really had been spoiled by her. That was why I had become so obsessed with keeping her all to myself. When we reached the summit, everyone else was busy setting up tents and getting the campfire ready. I quietly slipped away from the group, planning to take a walk by myself. I walked until I was deep in a dense grove of trees. Only then did I realize Liam had followed me. He did not look happy to see me, but he still handed me a bottle of bug spray. Wandering off by yourself is just going to cause trouble for everyone. I took it, a little surprised. Thanks, he said irritably. Chloe is busy with the tents. She sent me to keep an eye on you. If you are fine, I am going back. He turned to leave, but then stopped. Chloe and I have already agreed. We are going our separate ways after graduation. You do not need to see me as your rival. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Felt like an electric current was running through my veins. I felt an unbearable, agitating pain. Even Liam's words sounded like he was gloating, as if compelled by some unseen force. I reached out my hand, as if to grab his shirt. We were surrounded by trees, and right at our feet was a steep drop. One push and he would fall. By the time Chloe found him, he would be long dead. But I did not want to do it. I made a decision, closed my eyes, and threw my own body off balance, tumbling down the slope. My body hit the ground hard and began to tumble. I heard Liam cry out in alarm. The sharp pain brought some clarity back to my mind. I was finally free from that feeling of being controlled. But the dizzying roll and the stinging pain of cuts and bruises tore at my senses, making me grit my teeth in agony as stars exploded behind my eyes. When my body finally slammed into something and stopped, I passed out from the pain. When I woke up, I was in someone's warm arms. I opened my eyes just in time to see Chloe's terrifyingly grim expression. I told you, it had nothing to do with me. Liam's face was defiant as he faced her, and I was the pitiful, weak one. It was as if our roles in the story had been reversed. The attacker had become the victim. Chloe's face was like ice. I do not have time for this right now. But Liam, I warned you. If you have a problem, you come to me. I will give you whatever you want as compensation. But you do not touch him. Liam took a sharp, angry breath. This is insane. I fought through the pain that racked my body. I spoke weakly. Chloe. Chloe looked down at the sound of my voice, her eyes red-rimmed, a mixture of anger and pain on her face. I fell on my own. I leaned in and whispered in her ear. I was trying to push him, but I slipped and fell instead. Chloe's dark pupils contracted sharply. You see? This is how much I hate you both. So stay away from me. It hurt so much. As my consciousness faded in and out, I remembered when I was 6 years old. Chloe would hold a book, putting on a serious face like a little teacher, and try to teach me Latin. When you see good, act as if you can never have enough. When you see evil, act as if you have touched boiling water. To strive for goodness, that was the first thing she ever taught me. Tears slid from the corners of my eyes, a burning pain searing my heart. I was in the hospital for a week. During that time, because I refused to see her, Chloe did not visit. It was Raven who took care of me. But sometimes, when I went out for fresh air, I would catch a glimpse of a familiar figure hurrying away around a corner. After I was discharged, Chloe only contacted me once. She said she wanted to take me to see a psychiatrist. I was so scared I almost blocked her number. The withdrawal process was quick. On the day I moved out, Raven came to help me with my bags. Her bleached blonde hair was starting to grow out, showing dark roots. She looked a little less sharp around the edges. Remember what you promised me. After I am gone, you have to take care of Liam for me. The poor guy was really unlucky to have crossed paths with a menace like me. Raven, you can't just take the money and not do the job. Raven heaved the last suitcase into the trunk. Then she glanced up at me. That Chloe looks at me like I am a murderer. Besides, I cannot even get into their lab. I got anxious. You took my money. She looked down, her expression unreadable. I know. Then she fell silent. We did not speak again until all the bags were in the car. Raven finally spoke again, her voice quiet. Are you really going to transfer? I was confused. I have already withdrawn, of course it is real. You do not think I am just playing hard to get with Chloe, do you? No, she answered, short and sharp. The defiant girl was still frowning, a hesitant look on her face. I understood. Don't worry, I will take care of your grandmother's medical bills. You can call me anytime you need anything. Raven's brow furrowed even more, and she looked almost angry. She turned her head away awkwardly. I put a hand on her shoulder and gave it a comforting pat. Raven, you promised me you would be a good person. Live a good life. Do not sell your life to anyone, okay? Even a side character deserves to have their own life. And protect Liam. This was not just for him, it was for her too. Without me pushing her, Raven would not be their enemy. Making peace with the hero and heroine could only help her. I was about to say something else, but a sudden chill ran down my spine. What are you two doing? The familiar voice was as cold as ice. Chloe was still in her business suit, looking like she had just come from a meeting. She stood tall and straight, and the air around her seemed to drop in temperature. Behind her glasses, her searching eyes were locked on me. Her gaze flickered to the open trunk of the car. The look in her eyes grew even colder. You are moving out? My palms began to sweat, felt like a warning sign. I instinctively hid the fact that I was leaving the country. I said quickly, I am not used to the dorms. I want to live off campus. With her. Chloe's eyes narrowed, her response sharp. Her sharp gaze shifted. It landed on Raven. Her face grew colder. Before I could answer, she spoke again. Her voice was low and dangerous. No wonder. You have not been in touch with me lately. Her throat worked as she tried to control herself. She raised a hand and slowly took off her glasses. Her face was a mask of pure ice as she walked toward me. Then, slowly and calmly, she lifted my hand from Raven's shoulder as if it were made of delicate glass. The next second, she turned. I heard the whistle of air beside my ear. A fist, thrown with all her might, connected with Raven's face. Then she knelt down and grabbed Raven by the collar. Her expression was still terrifyingly calm. Raven, is it? I have had you investigated. Just as I thought, someone with no upbringing. Do you get some kind of sick pleasure from ruining other people's relationships? I had never seen Chloe like this. To the outside world, she was always the cool, elegant, and composed golden girl. The Chloe who had always been so gentle and forgiving with me. Her smile always warm. But now she was like an enraged lioness, her words dripping with venom. Raven let herself be held, raising a hand to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. Then she smirked, a defiant smile on her face. My heart nearly leaped out of my chest. Chloe, are you insane? Chloe turned at the sound of my voice. Her eyes were so red they looked as if they were bleeding. She gritted her teeth, each word laced with fury. Ethan, I am not dead yet, but beneath the anger, there was a hidden trace of hurt. Do not forget, we have not broken up. Liam and I are just colleagues, and we have no plans to work together in the future. Ethan, please do not push me away again. Felt like I had been punched in the gut. My mind went blank, and I just stood there, stunned. After a long moment, I finally managed to speak. Chloe, in my mind, we were never together. As my words landed, Chloe's eyes filled with shock. She looked furious, but also humiliated and bewildered. Her voice was strained. Ethan, are you playing with me? I looked at Chloe. A tangle of complex emotions twisted in my heart. So, in the story, the one thing that the me in the story would have killed to have, I had already had it all along. Chloe left. The last look she gave me was filled with nothing but bitter disappointment. The car drove on smoothly. In the back seat, I took out a first aid kit to clean Raven's wound. The person you like likes you back, so why are you still leaving? Raven leaned back against the seat, her head tilted up slightly. She glanced at me briefly, then quickly looked away. I dabbed a cotton swab with antiseptic. I put on a knowing expression. You do not understand. Chloe belongs with Liam. They might not be together now, but they will be eventually. It is called destiny. Raven glanced at me. She did not argue. She just watched me quietly for a long time. Ethan, your eyes are red. She suddenly ran a frustrated hand through her messy hair. She said irritably, even though she just punched me, and I should be bad-mouthing her right now. But I followed them before, and there really is nothing going on between her and Liam. In fact, she came to see me because of you. Raven's words trailed off. Her lips pressed into a thin line, a look of resistance on her face. I looked down. Raven, have you forgotten why you were following Liam in the first place? The first time I hired you, I asked you to find a chance to. My throat tightened, and it took me a long moment to force out the words. Cripple Liam's hands, so he could never work in a lab again. To ruin him and to ruin you along with him. I went to find Chloe. After all, after what she had said, I had tossed and turned all night, feeling guilty. I was supposed to be the dark, twisted villain, driven mad by love. How had I suddenly turned into a manipulative, two-timing jerk who was playing with the heroine's heart? I owed her an explanation, and I needed to apologize to Liam for everything I had done. And then I would say a proper goodbye, and I would start my own new life, a life that belonged to Ethan Ross. In the empty hallway, the lab door slowly opened. I stood up. I hurried over. My legs had gone numb from crouching for so long, and I limped as I walked. What are you doing here? Her face was grim. She was probably still angry, but as she looked at me, A flicker of pity crossed her eyes. Why were you crouching out here? Why did you not just call? I smiled. I sent you a text, but you probably did not see it. I was afraid to call and interrupt your work. By the way, Chloe, is Liam here? I pulled a folder out of my bag. Inside was my letter of apology to him. There was also enough money to cover his brother's medical expenses. Liam's feelings about his brother were complicated, so I would let him decide what to do. I have something for him. Don't worry, I really am here to apologize. Hesitation flickered in Chloe's eyes. The lab door opened again. A handsome figure appeared, and he shot me a glare. I still managed a bright smile and waved at him cheerfully. Liam! The word had barely left my lips. The scene before me froze. Time stopped. The world seemed to stand still. Everything faded to black and white. Only a single, emotionless voice echoed in my mind. Plot correction. When I could perceive time again, my body was no longer under my control. I was like a disembodied consciousness, forcibly torn from my own form. I could only watch as my own body picked up a utility knife. Malice and hatred twisted my face once more. Liam, how dare you try to take Chloe from me? Go to hell. At the critical moment, Chloe did not hesitate for a second. She threw herself in front of Liam. The tip of the blade sank into her shoulder, stopping with a shudder. But blood still trickled out. Chloe, do you love him that much? Are you willing to die for him? I was mad with jealousy, full of hate and resentment. Chloe's face was deathly pale, but she still reached out and gently covered my eyes, shielding me from the sight of the blood. Ethan, do not be afraid. Do not do the wrong thing. I could only watch numbly from the void, a helpless observer. I could not even feel pain anymore. Chloe was taken to the hospital. Even as they loaded her into the ambulance, she was still trying to comfort me. Ethan, do not worry. Just focus on school. I will take care of everything. She had lost so much blood. Her face was impossibly pale, but she still acted like she was the big sister who could protect me from anything. Even Liam, who hated my guts, could not stop himself from speaking to me. Ethan, you should be grateful. No matter what you do, you have Chloe to clean up your mess. Otherwise, did you really think I would not have fought back against your petty schemes? He shot us a cold look. He could not stop himself from cursing. Two lunatics. I felt like I was in a daze. Sometimes I felt like I was floating in a void, and other times, I was the one holding the knife. After shoving the folder into Liam's hands, I stumbled away. When my consciousness returned, I booked the earliest flight to Boston. I did not enroll in school. I just found a small, quiet town and rented a room. My landlady was a kind elderly woman, a devout Christian. She lived in the city but came out occasionally to check on her properties in town. This time, she brought me 2 bags of fresh fruit. I had just gotten back from a long walk and was dusting myself off. I took the fruit with a grateful smile. She looked at me with pity in her eyes. Did you go looking again today? Did you find a suitable one? I knew she was hesitant to say the word. I smiled at her. Not yet. None of the places felt right. She asked, this sickness of yours, are you sure you do not want to see another doctor? As long as there is life, there is hope. I just smiled. It is hopeless. The doctors said it is terminal. The landlady shook her head sadly and left. I looked down at the map in my hands and continued my search. I was looking for a burial plot, a place with sun in the summer and snow in the winter, where autumn leaves would melt into the earth and nourish new flowers in the spring. I looked up at the blinding sun. If I had one last chance to defy this world, it would be death. I did not want to hurt Chloe. I did not want to hurt anyone innocent. I did not want my parents, in their 50s, to have a son who was a murderer. I did not want to live as a person who only caused pain. I searched for 3 months and could not find a place I liked. I only found a woman in a black coat. She was like the pale winter sun, but her eyes were filled with an uncontrollable longing. I took 2 steps back, which made her look panicked. She rushed forward and took my hand. Her grip was so tight it felt like she was trying to merge our bones together. Ethan. She pulled me into her arms, her voice trembling. I did not struggle. I just smiled and said, Chloe, let me tell you a story. Surprisingly, the story came out easily. In the story, the hero and heroine lived happily ever after, and the villain got the ending he deserved. The whole time, Chloe was silent, until the story was over. When she looked down at me, her eyes were red. Ethan, that is not how it ends. I froze. How could Chloe know? There was a part one had left out. In the story, 3 months after their wedding, Chloe jumped from a building and killed herself. After her funeral, Liam told reporters that his wife had died of depression, that their marriage had been one of convenience for their business, and that their feelings for each other were not deep. Then he went back to the company and continued to be a titan of industry. Chloe held my hand, stroking it gently with a deep, lingering affection. As she looked at me, it was as if I could see years of memories in her eyes, a tenderness that was stripped of all artifice. Ethan, let me tell you a story too. After the boy died, her life seemed to become even more painful. She always felt like she had forgotten something important. She thought about it day and night, losing sleep, waking from nightmares every single night. And when she finally remembered, she knew it was time to go be with him. A sharp pain shot through my heart. What did she forget? She gently tucked a stray strand of my hair behind my ear. She looked at me as if I were a priceless treasure, her eyes full of love and joy. Do you remember when you were little and you broke my father's antique vase? Do you remember what I told you? How could I forget? Back then, Chloe and her father did not have a good relationship. She took the blame for me and got a terrible punishment. In the story, the girl who had once patiently taught me my multiplication tables had a look of pure indulgence on her face. It is just a vase. If it is broken, it is broken. I will always be with you, and I will always protect you. My mind was reeling as I looked at Chloe, a storm of emotions inside me. Ethan, do not be afraid. I will not break my promise again. I stared at her. When did you know? She gently took my hand and placed it on her right shoulder, over her scar. Her expression was as solemn as if she were taking an oath. I have you to thank for this. I was heartbroken, but I still forced a smile and tried to threaten her. Chloe, are you not afraid? What if one day I lose my mind and stab you in the heart? She gently wiped a tear from the corner of my eye. She smiled, a light, carefree expression on her face. Then I will hand you the knife. Covered my face, sobbing. Chloe, I never wanted to hurt you. Her eyes grew red as she gently pulled me into her embrace. I know. I should have known. The Ethan I raised is the kindest boy I know. In the fading light of the sunset, Chloe and I walked hand in hand, through the autumn woods, on the path that led home, toward our unknown fate.